This episode of Otis Originals is sponsored by Roxant. Cool gear for creative people.
Okay, you ready to do this? Me too. Got a few things laid out that I may or may not need depending on the individual camera, and we'll see what happens with them. I've got, of course, the 3 included weights. I have the locking tie-down knob for those weights. I have a few different cameras of varying weights and sizes. A pair of pliers, you never know when those will come in handy. Smartphone adapter in case I want to mount a smartphone. I have the ball head adapter, which I use quite often with my Kodak ZI-8. It's just something that I like to do. I've got a few washers of different weights and sizes. Now these can come in handy if you are somewhere between 2 weights in your balance and one is too heavy, one is too light. You need something just a little bit in between them. You can take the lighter weight and add a washer or 2 to it. That'll hopefully get you into the zone. I also have tape for taping said washer onto said camera. And the timer to keep me honest in under 5 minutes. I feel like I'm missing something. Of course. The stabilizer. First up in our 5-minute balancing is one of my old favorites. It's a Kodak ZI-8. Weighs in at 0.302 pounds. And I'll do the conversion for you up here. Weighs about the same as a GoPro in its water housing, so it's similar to that. Main difference is going to be that because it's a long, tall camera, part of this weight is going to be further away from the fulcrum point, if you remember our seesaw analogy. So that's going to make for some adjustments in the balance. Okay, I'm starting without any weights on the bottom. I've got the gimbal in the center hole, and the camera is mounted into the center of the top mounting platform. So if you're ready, let's give this a shot. Remember, 5 minutes or bust. And go. Okay, now since I know this is a super lightweight camera, I'm going to start just with the lightest weight. Put that on the bottom, and we'll screw that down. Okay, there we go. Now let's check for our overall horizontal balance. Now that just wants to drop all the way down, so we need to move this weight closer to the fulcrum. Remember, we're doing that by loosening the locking knob on the arm. I'm just going to go all the way to the shortest position, and we'll check that again. Okay, it's fairly level. Let's see if we can get it into an upright position by moving the camera uphill. We can do that. We can also move the gimbal, if you remember correctly, or our fulcrum point. So let's start by doing that. Since it was a pretty severe tilt, I'm going to go ahead and move it to the front hole. Screw that in, loosen our locking knob. See what that's got us. Okay, I was pretty lucky. It's level front to back, side to side. Let's see what that drop time looks like now. That's just over a second. Not even a second. And if you remember, we want a 2-second drop time, because if we don't, what's going to happen? Yep, that bottom arm is going to start to swing and sway. That is not good. So since the arm is as short as it can go, and I've got the lightest weight on, I've got nowhere else to go with this weight. So this is what I was talking about earlier with these washers. They can come in handy sometimes when you need just a little extra weight on the bottom. Or I should say just a little more than nothing at all, because that's what's going to happen now as I'm taking off this weight and putting on, looks like 4 washers. They're 1.5 inches. Tighten that down. And now let's see what happens here. That's horizontal. So we want to start getting it into the upright, so we need to lengthen this arm or move this weight from the fulcrum point. So let's lengthen the arm about, I don't know, halfway. How are we doing on time? 2 minutes and 22 seconds so far. We're doing okay. How's that going? Okay, it's dropping down. The drop time is already too fast. 1,000, not even a second. But we can fix that by shortening the arm, moving this weight closer to the gimbal. 1,001, 1,000, almost 2 seconds. That's not horrible. Shorten it a little bit more. Pardon me if I am not paying attention to you all the time. I'm just trying to get this done in 5 minutes. 1001, 1002. That is not horrible. Might actually be a little bit too slow, so let's bring it down like a 1/16 of an inch. Tiny, tiny moves. 1001, 1002. 2 seconds is close enough for me. Let's see, front to back, that's pointing uphill, so we move the weight uphill. Move the camera just like an 1/8 of an inch maybe. See what that does. Nope, not enough. So we'll loosen it, we'll move it a little bit more forward. Okay, that was too much. So now the back's going up, so we move the weight uphill by moving the camera backwards up the hill. And I'm going to just split the difference between where I just had it and where it was before. And that should give me perfectly level front to back. What's side to side look like? It's tilting a little bit to the left, so remember we want to swing the bottom arm opposite the way the camera's tilting. So loosen that just a bit, and we're going to swing the bottom arm out to the right the tiniest little bit. No, it's still tilting to the left, so we're going to swing that a little bit more. That looks level left to right. It looks level front to back. Let's check our drop speed and have our fingers crossed. 1001, 1002. Ding! 4 minutes and 23 seconds. It's a new record! But wait, we still have to check for pendulum effect, remember? So we hold it out in front of us and we move it back and forth. It is not swinging at the bottom crazy like that. It's not swinging at all. It returns to center on its own. I'm ready to go shoot with this. Let's move on to round 2. Welcome back. We're now on to round 2 of the speed balance round. I've had to do something crazy in this round. We've already balanced the PowerShot Pro 1, which was at 1.4 pounds, and we just balanced the ZI-8, which was 0.302 pounds. I needed a camera somewhere between those two to show another balance. However, I don't have a camera that weighs somewhere between those two. What I do have is an old Sony CyberShot, which weighs in at 0.31 pounds, which is pretty much the same as the ZI-8. So, in order to find something in between those two, I taped a roll of quarters to the CyberShot. Go ahead and laugh if you want. Physics is physics, so it's still going to be a valid demonstration for you. Another crazy thing about the CyberShot is that the mounting hole is way off to one side. So this end of the camera is sticking way out to the side. We've gone ahead and put the gimbal back into the center hole. I've mounted the camera into the center of the mounting platform. Don't have any weights on to begin. Let's see what happens. Fingers crossed. Are you ready? And begin. All right, since this is now 0.9 pounds, somewhere between these two, I don't know. Let's try the heaviest weight first. See what that does for us. Tighten that down. And let's see. 1,000. That was way fast. Okay, that's way too heavy to begin with. I'm not even going to bother trying. So let's go to the middle weight. Tighten. Come on, we've only got 5 minutes. Okay, let's see what that does. Well, it's kind of level there. Let's see what our drop time is. Well, I can't even tell the drop time because this thing is way too forward. So let's move that camera backwards. Loosen that up a little more. Slide it all the way to the back. See if that even gets us into an upright position. And it still wants to tilt forward. So we'll move our gimbal forward, or the way the camera is pointing. Screw that back in. How are we doing on time? 1 minute, 20 seconds. Perfect. Okay. Now it wants to tilt backwards. What's our drop time? You know what? This is too much. So let's try the smallest weight. And tighten that up. Now that's tilting way backwards, so maybe I move this forward prematurely. Let's move the gimbal back to the center position. Tighten it in. Loosen our locking knob. Of course, I know that this is going to swing off to the side. That's crazy front to back. Let's move the gimbal forward one hole. Okay, let's take care of that left-right. Loosen that up a little bit. Remember, the camera's tilting to the left, so we want to move our weights out to the right. It's almost there. And a little move, still too much tilt. Okay, we might have to just lower this arm a little bit to get that weight out further. Almost there. Okay, tilt it a little bit more. That's good enough to get me in the zone right now. Okay, how's our front to back? Yay! Really crazy. Okay, so let's move this forward again. I guess I had it in the right hole. Remember, this is all trial and error. I never know what's going to happen until I get the camera on there and I start balancing it. Okay, so we're in the front hole now. Camera wants to tilt back, so we move the weight uphill. I have never done this configuration before, so I don't know what's going to happen. Got a minute and a half left to figure it out. Okay. Tilt that out to the side a little more. And a little bit more. Almost. What's our drop speed looking like? We don't even have enough weight to get us there. Okay, let's move this down. Straighten that out a little. That was too much. Move it back out to the right. Camera's tilting backwards, so we move the weight uphill again. Ooh, I've got just a minute to get this. Almost there. Let's see. Nope, too much. Okay, so we're moving it backwards again. Pretty darn good there. Pretty darn good there. Let's check our drop speed. 1,001, 1,002. Oh, I've got a little bit more on the bottom. I can move that still down. 1,001, 1,000, 1,001, 1,000. You know what? That's almost there. Front to back, left to right. Let's just check our pendulum. It's not swinging. 4 minutes and 41 seconds. And we've got a good balance. No pendulum effect, level front to back, level side to side. I'd go shoot with this if I didn't have a roll of quarters taped to the front. I've got one more camera that I'm going to balance for you. It's the heaviest one that I own, at least the heaviest one that will work with your Roxant Stabilizer. Be right back with that. The last camera in our 5-minute balances is the Canon 7D. This is probably the heaviest camera I would ever use on the Roxant Pro Stabilizer. With a battery, memory card, and a prime lens, it weighs in at 2.4 pounds, which is above Roxant's recommended limit of 2.1 pounds. So as a disclaimer, I have to tell you that you use a camera this heavy at your own risk. But this stabilizer is so well built that I have no worries about using it. Besides, the extra weight of the 7D is a great workout for your arm. As before, I've moved the camera to the center of the top mounting platform, and I've screwed the gimbal into the middle hole on the bottom. You may have noticed that I switched out the smaller handle that comes with the Pro Midnight Black Edition for the larger handle. It just feels more comfortable with this heavier setup. But don't worry, the balancing process will be exactly the same no matter what handle you're using, or if you're using the Roxant Red version or the Midnight Black Edition. And this includes all the balances I've done up to this point. You might also be asking why I've never moved the bottom arm's locking knob and tried any of the other mounting holes. Well, that's because I found that 99% of the time I can balance pretty much any camera keeping the knob in the bottom hole. That's where I'd recommend you start with yours for your camera too. Okay, enough of my rambling. If you're ready, let's get this party started. Now, since I know that this camera weighs more than Roxant's recommended 2.1 pounds, it's a pretty good guess that I'm going to need all 3 of the counterweights. So So we'll go ahead and mount those, tighten them down, and let's see where our horizontal balance is. And that's pretty horizontal, I'd say. Now I know that I have more room to move the counterweights further away from the camera to start getting the camera into the upright position. So let's go ahead and move these weights down about an inch, moving them away from the gimbal or the fulcrum point. And we're starting to move in the right direction. I think I need to move them just a little bit more. I'd like to try to get close to a 45-degree angle when I check that horizontal balance. And that's fairly close to that. So let's start moving it into the upright position. Let's see what our camera's doing here. We're tilting to the right, and we're also tilting way down. Let's take care of the front tilt first. We'll do that since it's so severe. I'm going to move the handle one hole forward. And if you're wondering how I can move this handle so quickly, I just took the screw insert that goes in each of these holes and I put it on top of the gimbal with a little Loctite. That tends to keep it in place so I can move it quicker. Okay, how's our front to back balance? That is not bad at all. How is our side balance? Wow, that's way off to the right. So remember how we take care of that. Camera tilts to the right. We swing the weights out to the left. That was a little too much, so I'm going to bring them ever so slightly back to center. Nope, that was too much. See, at this point, especially with a heavy camera, you're talking about just making little nudges with the weight, just barely enough to notice the move, and that looks pretty level left to right. How's our front to back? Tilting ever so slightly uphill, so we'll move that weight uphill. How's our time? 2 minutes, 17 seconds. Okay. I just moved it about a 1/16 of an inch. Very small amount. And as you can see, that was too much. So I have to move it backwards now. Half that distance. Boy, we're talking just about a hair's width. Okay. And now we're starting to tilt off to the right again. Okay. Remember, this is going to happen over and over again, in smaller and smaller steps. Good left to right. It's still tilting just a little bit down. And, oof. I couldn't even see if I moved that. But that was just enough. All right, let's check our drop speed and see what we've got. 1001, just over a second. So, to shorten the drop speed, remember, we bring the weights closer to the fulcrum or the camera. So we're going to lower that down. I'm going to start about a 1/2 inch. See where that gets me. 1001, 1000. A little bit too fast still. Shorten it maybe another 1/4 inch. Got a 1.5 minutes left. 1001, 1000. Nope, still too fast. A little bit more. 1001, 1002. That works pretty well for me. Left to right is off, so we'll swing the bottom weights opposite the way the camera is tilting. That was too much. Swing them back to the right. Camera is now tilting forward, so we'll move it uphill. We'll move it backwards. You are probably sick of me saying that phrase over and over. Move the weight uphill. But you know what? You'll never forget it. And just a tiny adjustment. Camera's tilting left. I just barely moved the weights to the right. Good left to right. Good front to back. Tighten down our locking knob and check our drop speed again. 1001, 1002. It's still too fast. All right, I gotta hurry up. I got 20 seconds left to get this. 1001, 1002. Okay, good. Swing that off to the left a little bit. Level front to back. Level left to right. 1001, 1002. Talk about getting in under the wire. 4 minutes and 56 seconds. But we still have to do that pendulum test. So we swing it back and forth. There is no movement from the bottom. Let's try frontwards and backwards too. That also looks good. So I've got a perfectly balanced Canon 7D, and I know I'm going to get some great looking shots with this setup. One other tip, if you're not sure of the weight of your camera and you don't own a precision scale, most manufacturers will have their camera's weight listed somewhere on their website. It's usually under the technical specs. There you have it, several different size and weight cameras, all balanced in under 5 minutes each. You didn't think it could be done, did you? Now true, I've been working with cameras for over 20 years, but I only tried the Roxant Pro Stabilizer for the first time a couple of months ago. So the whole reason for making this video was to show you how easy it can be to balance pretty much any camera, provided it's within the weight limit that Roxant recommends. And that's 2.1 pounds at the top end for your heavier cameras. Although you can go slightly over that at your own risk. Now as for the lightest camera you could balance, I really wouldn't recommend anything under 1/3 of a pound. For example, a GoPro with its waterproof housing weighs 147 grams, which works out to just over 1/3 of a pound. Anything less than that, you're going to have a very difficult time trying to balance a stabilizer with the correct drop time. So you might have to add some weights to the camera itself by either taping on some heavy washers or even some coins. Anything that has weight and won't shift around on the camera. The other reason you don't want to try to use too lightweight of a camera is yet another law of physics. Mass equals stability. Now think about it for a minute. What would be easier to move from a standstill? A tennis ball or a bowling ball? Well, the tennis ball, of course, because the bowling ball has more mass or weight and therefore needs more initial energy to get it moving. The same law of physics works on your Roxant Stabilizer. With a lighter overall mass on your rig, just an accidental light bump of your hand or even a strong gust of wind could easily knock it out of level. And there goes your shot. But with a heavier camera, which needs more counterweight at the bottom, giving you a greater overall mass, the entire stabilizer has inherently greater stability. Once again, physics wins. I hope this video has helped with balancing your Roxant Pro Camera Stabilizer, especially those of you who have been struggling with it, or anyone who thought they had it balanced correctly, but just couldn't get it to perform properly. I think I've covered just about every possible balancing problem, and given you the knowledge to figure it out on your own. All you have to do is use the information I've presented here, make small moves, and if you ever start to get frustrated, just stop for a minute and think. Oh yeah, and move the weight uphill. With just a little patience and practice, you'll be shooting smooth shots like a pro in no time. If I somehow missed anything or you have further questions, post them in the comments section down below and I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. And if you enjoyed this video, maybe learned a thing or two, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm Otis, and I'll see you next time for more Otis Originals. And cut. Has anyone seen my driver? I'd really like to beat traffic. Ooh, and it's almost happy hour.